Okay, friends, I'll give it a minute and then we will start. It's really good to see everyone. Um, Maybe I'll ask Gabriel, Larato, and Farouj and Evie and Olive to just say their names and one sentence to introduce yourselves to others. You're the early birds. The others won't have this luxury.
I'm happy to begin, Gabrielle Donnelly, and uh, my connection tonight is to begin to celebrate and recognize this month, this important month that's ahead of us. And Marjorie, thank you always for hosting this beautiful launch event of conversation and reflection. And my connection is community development at Acadia University.
Thanks. Lerato?
Yes, thank you. This is my first African Heritage Month at Acadia, so I'm grateful that this is a practice that happens before we get into the month of February. But also, as a person of faith, in a very secular society, this is always something near and dear to my heart. So I look forward to the conversation. 5 sentences.
Yes, and Lerato is the Associate Vice President for Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism. And Farouj?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Marjorie. It's so good to see you. Thank you for sharing this opportunity with Acadia University and everyone. I'm from Sociology Department at Acadia University, and I am teaching right now, and I teach race and ethnic relations in Canada courses and courses related to that. And it's a great opportunity to be here and to learn more about this topic from the people who are working in these important sectors. So I'm grateful and thank you.
Thank you. And Olive? Olive, 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 Olive. Okay. Olive Phillips is the president of the Jamaican Cultural Association for Nova Scotia. So I think we'll hear from her later. Well, friends, again, thanks for joining this conversation. I want to start by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We also are in a space where people of African descent have been here for over 400 years. And we live with the legacy of colonialism and ongoing issues around racism. But we also live with the hope and the knowledge that truth, justice, and reconciliation are quite possible, and we are all called to be there, to be participants in this. So now we can see Olive, but we'll bring you in a little later, Olive. I came up with this notion for a number of reasons of the topic, but an important part of that was a conversation I heard on The Current on CBC with Matt Galloway and Dr. Jane Philpott, a former Minister of Health in Canada. And I will just quote Dr. Philpott briefly. She says, "Faith has meant everything to me in terms of having hope. I talk in the book, a book that she has recently written, about the importance of having hope and what it means about our wellness and recognizing that there is actually more than just the material world around us. We've become such a secular society. We've become so focused on the things that we can touch and prove. But there is something about our souls that gets lost in all of that. There's something about recognizing that there are big spiritual forces around us, and that, this time that we have on earth is meant to be infused with a sense of the miraculous, a sense of the profound. And for me, faith and a belief that there is more to life than what I can see and touch and prove is part of what gives me the hope to go on. So then Matt says, but you never spoke about this before. And she said, I think I was afraid to. Afraid that people would think that I was trying to manipulate them. People attach faith to religion, and they attach religion to some sort of desire to try to convince other people to become part of your religion. And I think Christians probably have that, and are accused of more of that more than others. That they are proselytizing somehow if they talk about their faith. And so for me, especially as a politician, I didn't want anyone to think that I would ever use my faith as a way to change what I did, that I would serve people only if they were part of the same faith. And of course, that's not what either doctors should do or politicians should do. And so with that, I want to introduce you briefly to our panelists. We will have the panelists and discussants present, and then afterwards we'll have an open conversation, responding and reflecting on what they have offered us. And so we have with us Dr. David Hawes, a retired medical doctor and lecturer at Dalhousie University. And David will present, and responding to David will be Amy Rockwell, lecturer in Acadia's School of Nursing. We have Reverend Debbie Simmons, Minister of Evangelism, Outreach, and Multimedia at East Preston Baptist Church. And she's also involved with the Preston Food Security Organization. David McPhee, who is a registered social worker and case manager at Acadia Counseling Center, will respond to Debbie. And then we have an international guest, Reverend Ronald Thwaites. And Reverend Thwaites, as he mentioned before, is a lawyer, a deacon in the Roman Catholic Church, attorney at law, and journalist. He served as a member of parliament, as Minister of Education, and he's currently principal at St. Michael's College in Kingston. So we are depending on him to bring us a bit of international flavor to our conversation. So I'll go right away and ask David Hawes to share his thoughts with us on our topic, faith and public service.
Thank you, Marjorie. Hope everyone can see my slides and hear me okay. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here and to be part of this panel. And, I thank the other panelists as well for being here. We've been asked to address, I'm just going to see if I can get my slides to change for me here. Okay. we've been asked to address a number of questions, and really they are the role of faith in public service, the role of faith in ethical decisions, and the role of faith in resilience. So I'm going to offer my comments in the context of my previous experience. I'm retired now, but I was in active clinical practice for over 30 years and spent a lot of time caring for members of the public. I'll tell you though upfront that I had a little bit of a challenge thinking about these questions because, you know, my Christian faith is really an integral part of who I am. And it's not separated from my thoughts or my actions or my words. So it was it's a bit challenging to kind of sit down and think deliberately about the role of my faith in the workplace. When you read through the Holy Bible, God's love is a thread that runs through the Bible from beginning to the very end. And so this is who I am. As a Jesus follower, his love for me flows through me and really flows to everyone that I encounter. A little bit of a background here. So, growing up in a small town in Jamaica, a place called Savannah, some people call it, was very interesting. And I'll tell you a story. One day we were sitting at the table having a meal, mom, dad, couple siblings, and myself. And all of a sudden, there's this man rushed in, great distress, hid behind the door. He was hiding from another man who was out to harm him, seriously harm him. And so he took refuge behind our doorway. My mom and dad were very calm about it, and they just protected him. And as a result, he stayed working with our family for a very long time. And so, really, you know, until I developed my own personal relationship with Jesus, I did not understand why my parents would care so much for other people. And at times it was quite upsetting to see them giving to others when it seemed that we did not have enough for ourselves. The other significant role model I will mention is our family physician, or was our family physician, where I grew up. And I used to see him from time to time, and he really sparked my interest and my desire to become a physician. And so from a very early age, I was determined to become a physician and care for others the way he did. I trained as a medical doctor, first in Jamaica, and you can see my journey took me to several universities. So first in Jamaica and then here in Canada. My motivation really to provide service to the public stems from my deep-rooted love and caring for everyone. This is the end result of following Jesus, who for me really is the greatest role model of all. He has been, well, my life really, is modeled from the lifestyle that he had as well. And so my life really has been and still is a life of service to others. Ethical decision making was a huge part of things we did in the workplace when I was in active clinical practice. There were many instances when we had to make decisions, including life and death decisions. Here I depict two medical conditions. One, and they're both acquired in different ways. One is sometimes acquired by personal behavioral choices, and the other acquired is a really a genetic, an inherited genetic disorder. But there were times when they both required similar types of care. they would deteriorate clinically, and we would have to make decisions as to which way to go. And often they would not survive without artificial life support. End of life care, therefore, for these individuals was very challenging, could be challenging. Several were young adults who would have a much longer life journey if they didn't have these underlying conditions. We would need to ensure that they came to grips with the potential end of life process. And we would do our best to make sure that they had the opportunity to discuss fully the end of life, the care options, and make decisions while they were still competent. And of course, we would need to involve family and significant others in that process. There were times when we had to make difficult decisions regarding life support. When to place an individual on life support? Would they survive without it? Would we then need to make decisions about removing them from life support? And all this in the context of relieving pain and suffering. I believe my Christian faith helped in making those decisions in the context of my medical training. It allowed me to respect the wishes of the individual patient and their family, and it provided a level of compassion and empathy, which I feel impacted those encounters. Love and care also bring attachment. And over the many years of practice, there were good times and difficult times, highs and lows, if you will. There were individuals who had difficulty accepting their diagnosis. There were individuals who had difficulty taking medications that were prescribed on a consistent basis. And sometimes it was very heartbreaking to sit at the bedside of a young person dying from a terminal illness, such as cystic fibrosis, with no ability really to change their life journey. Every death was a time of grieving for the family and the friends, and also for the medical team. So we needed to support the family and friends, and also to support each other. God provided strength and wisdom to allow me to do the best in each situation. He helped me to deal with the grief and the loss, and to move on to take care of others. So my life purpose is really condensed in these two verses of Scripture. And I'll paraphrase. To love the Lord my God with all my being, and to love others unconditionally. Love my neighbors unconditionally. And of course, you will say, who is my neighbor? And I'll come back to you and say, my neighbor is anyone who needs my help. So that is how my Christian faith has supported my public service. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. I wanted to pause for prayer, but let's ask Amy to respond from her perspective as a nurse and nursing educator.
Thank you, David. That was beautiful. And you are a gift to those families that you served and continue to serve. My thoughts are similarly aligned with yours. As a nurse, in many different instances, I worked in ICU for a number of years, and that led me to work in hospice care for a time, where I never would have thought as a 20-some-year-old nurse I would have gravitated towards caring for the dying. I, in fact, tried to avoid them because I wasn't able to face my own mortality comfortably, even with a lot of faith. So I think as you experience suffering of others, you see all that is good in humanity, and you become more compassionate and more comfortable in your faith and expressing your faith. So acts of service come in all different forms. And so when you had said, these things coming through, Christ is in you, and regardless of the denomination or the religion or whatever's captured on the patient chart at the time coming into hospital, the common thread really is faith. So I started to do a lot of work with fellow nurses who were struggling with that because we have a lot of burnout and a lot of, they call it compassion fatigue in nursing. And I challenge that because I don't think it's the compassion that fatigues us. I think it's the system that we're working in that denies death and denies spirituality and denies faith. And it's almost taboo now to ask somebody if they like to see the chaplain or if they like to pray. And there is a song I play for nursing students as I do a lot of learning through music. And it's kind of a pop song by Sam Smith that's Everybody Prays in the End. And there's quite powerful lyrics into that. And it has been my experience that everybody does indeed pray in the end. So your messages spoke to me, and I hope to continue to do work with students and with new nurses and with patients and families in embracing faith and cultural practices in hospital, because for a very long time and continuing on now, it's a very westernized biomedical model of care, paternalistic, and faith is often not promoted or promoted at all because I don't, there's a fear or it's not tangible, it's not seen. And I just explain it just like I explain it to my children. It's like the wind. You can't see it, but you know it's there. And that's how I explain faith and spirituality to families at end of life. And it is visceral. So I do appreciate these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. And we're going to move right over to Debbie.
Okay, before I start, I just want to thank Dr. Hawes and Reverend Marjorie for inviting me to be part of this panel. I am humbled and I consider it an honor to be on the same panel as Dr. Hawes. Okay, I just want to say that. I just hope that I'm able to bring something to the discussion that is helpful to everyone. Thanks, David McPhee, for helping me navigate the process. There's a first time for everything, and this being a first time for me. So thank you. And so you can start that slide now. Thank you.
I'm sorry, you said start the slide. I'm not sure what slide you're referring to.
The PowerPoint, sorry.
I don't think I have a PowerPoint, sorry.
You didn't get the PowerPoint? Okay.
David
So,
McPhee has the PowerPoint, I think.
yeah,
Is that it, David?
that's David. Yeah, but David McPhee. Do you have it? Yeah. I'm sorry, did I say Dr. David? Oh, sorry. It looks long, but believe me, I went through it and it's going to take 10 minutes for me to say what I got to say. So get ready, David. So thank you again. The title, Purpose, Ethics, and Resilience. My focus is going to be more on purpose than anything else there. But if you can find some of those ethical or resilience things in there, I think the ending may have something to do with that. But anyway, I just want to say my volunteer service is with the East Preston United Baptist Church, the AUBA, and the Health Association of African Canadians, the Preston Township, and the only one there that I'm getting paid for is the Preston Area Food Network. So I just wanted to make that mention. Could you go to the first slide or second slide, please? Okay, so my purpose is based on Matthew 25:35-40. It has been my purpose forever and a day, and that is the reason why I do what I do. I believe that Jesus's words in Matthew 25:35-40 is God's purpose for all of us, and that's what drives me. Okay, next slide. I love working with people in my community. I love every person of every walk of life. I love helping, serving, doing, modeling, empowering people with dignity, love, and respect. There is freedom in outreach. And I say that because I get the opportunity to pray with people. I get the opportunity to listen to people. I get the opportunity to sit with people, to see them in their homes, and then to see them in their community as well. And I believe by me doing the work that I do in the community, I'm building community. I'm building people of faith. And because that's what I do. I help people, and through my faith, I hope that I'm setting an example. Next slide. This slide shows the Preston Township, which consists of 4 predominantly Black communities: East Preston, North Preston, Cherrybrook, and surrounding areas. I was raised in East Preston. I currently live in East Preston. I married a man from North Preston, and I have relatives in Cherrybrook. So we're a close-knit community, okay? So everyone knows everyone, okay? Pretty well in the community of East Preston. Next slide, please. Philippians 4:13 has been my go-to scripture ever since I accepted the Lord. And I know that for some, it's meant like it is for me. Even in the hardest of times, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. When things are good, I can still do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's that dependence on Christ. And he's never let me down. Let me just say that. Next slide. So the Health Association of African Nova Scotians has been in existence for over 20 years, and I became the co-president as a community representative in January of 2023. I was joining Sharon Davis Murdoch, who is the founding member and champion of keeping HAWK at the forefront. HAWK promotes culturally competent care, research, and equality for all, and has taken the lead in health-based initiatives such as the Nova Scotia Brotherhood and Nova Scotia Sisterhood. HAWK has been and continues to be a valuable liaison between community and government organizations. Next slide. So some of my volunteer work under the HAWK umbrella, I went to the IWK, the Community Mental Health and Addictions asked if a HAWK member could come and help conduct interviews for their African Nova Scotian Services team. And I was part of 4 of those interviews. And also during COVID, on the other slide there, I was a greeter at several of the clinics throughout the province. And at one of the clinics, we even traveled as far away as Cape Breton to deliver a health clinic there to the Black community. Next slide. My work with the East Preston Church extends beyond your typical ministry duties, and we know what those are. And so next slide. In 2017, after I retired, I was moved to create a Facebook page for the community church members where they can give away what they no longer need, and get items that they might need. Thus the name Acts 4 Give or Take, and it's based on Acts 4:32. So it has taken off. It started out slow with like 3 or 4 members, but as you can see, it's grown to 96 members. Next slide, please. And so while managing that Facebook page, I thought, why not share a bit of God's reminders to encourage a cheerful giver? So I do put on every once in a while, when I see things are slowing down, reminders that, spring cleaning or to give, and scriptures to go along with it. Next slide. And this just shows some of the things that are given away on our page. And the christening outfit in the middle there was given to me by a lady that I worked with, and she's from the Roman Catholic Church. And she's my friend. And so anyone that has anything and they know me, they will reach out and say, can I put this online or whatever? And I will do it for them. Next slide, please. So the Preston Area Food Network. So in November 2022, I was looking for something more to do in the community. And so I prayed about it, and because I felt there was so much need, and the food bank in the community had shut down. And so I noticed the position for food hub coordinator, and it sounded like it was something I could do. It read, be the center of it all. And it hadn't had anything started really in this particular role. So that I felt was a challenge, and so I took it on. Next slide, please. As I always loved this challenge, I thought this would be great. So Ken Hudson, who's the director, along with the community peer support, Carrie Lynn, interviewed me, and the rest is history. Next slide. What I didn't know at the time, next slide, please. What I didn't know at the time was that that this would be part of the collaborative food network in the province. And that we were the second one. The first one was actually the Eskasoni First Nations. And so with these collaborative food networks, I can say now there are 7 of them, and they continue to grow. So we were the second one. And so, that's a little bit of history on that. Next slide, please. So starting from the ground up, we named ourselves the Preston Area Food Network, and we worked on a mission, and we worked on the possible. And next slide, please. We answered the who, what, and why. Next slide. And after working with the churches and the AUBA, we purchased 3 sheds, so 3 built small sheds, and the churches agreed to have them placed on their church property, which was ideal because why not connect the church with the food bank, right? So it was great. Next slide, please. Our coffee and chat groups were already going on. Yeah. And I was introduced to them. And so every month we hold 2 or 3 of these. And these are not just a time for people to get together to talk and have coffee. We actually have educational sessions. So in the bottom slide, you'll see a police officer there. We're trying to, bring in people that can educate and assist people in any area. So we've had someone come in he does the testing on your hearing. We had someone come in and talk about dementia. We have nurses come in, the health teams. And so it has been really good. We, also have some fun as well with that. Next slide. And so I usually purchase the majority of the food for the sheds, but donations are always welcome. Next slide. This past Christmas, we received more community member donations than ever before. So it's growing, even though we're not that old yet. We're not going to be 2 until April. We have increased our donations. Next slide. So not having a store to call our own in any of the communities or Tim Hortons or any of that, for the older people in the community, bringing the food sheds into the community and having, free giveaways was a real blessing. So this is a testimony from a gentleman that came and really appreciated the sheds, and it is a community feel. Next slide. After I retired, I would receive in 2017, I would receive free samples in bulk to give to the community from Abbott, the inshore. When COVID hit, it was harder to get those products, but thankfully the board said that I could use some of the funds to fund these products. So people that are palliative and they've come from hospital, they have cancer or whatever, they're sick, they're not doing well, they're losing weight. This is what I will give them, and I have up to every month at least 20 to 25 people that receive product. Next slide. We have cooking sessions that we hold in the evening once a month with a community person from a person from the community who is a chef. There's several chefs who provide their time and their skill, and so we appreciate that. If you notice on the bottom there, there's a spice called Slap Your Mama. That was really interesting when the chef brought that in when they were creating their dish. Next slide, please. And again, there's some more cooking session pictures and people who sign up. We usually send out a poster. They vary. We will solicit the community for men, women, single moms, single dads, couples, grandparents, youth. No one is left out. Next slide. Meal baskets are given to anyone who requests them. We have people who are sick, returning home from the hospital for the first time. They may not feel like making a meal. We'll show up with a basket for them. Or if a tragedy strikes the family, we will reach out to that family and bring them a basket as well. Next slide. Emergency grocery orders or urgent grocery orders are for those one-offs. We have a website as well. So sometimes I will get orders from people that are just moving into a community for the first time. I will go outside of the Preston Township. I've delivered, urgent grocery orders to the surrounding areas, and there's no problem with that. We don't say no to anyone. Next slide, please. So this is just a glance at the joint programs that we've done throughout the years. And Trunk or Treat, Christmas Hamper, Pamper Me Day, and Barbecue Backpack Program. Next slide, please. There's more joint programs that we've done. Next slide. And these next 3 slides, actually, you can go through them quite quickly because they're just testimonies, really, from the people that attend the coffee and chat of how they've been blessed and they feel, really pleased to be part of the program. Next slide. Just goes to show, that 90 is now up to 130. So it's always growing. We get more and more people added to our group. And as you know, the baby boomers are big. So they're all in their retirement ages now. And so, our group is growing. Next slide. Last summer, in July, we started receiving meals. So Mark Brand, Upward Mobility Kitchens, and the AUBA provided us with 7,000 meals throughout the summer. And so we gave those out with all the communities and even as far away as Beachville and Truro. We got meals delivered there too. And we received another 1,000 meals this past Christmas. So it was really a blessing for the community to have those. The next slide. I'm the only staff right now, but I manage a large pool of 65 volunteers from the 3 communities to help with operations. Next slide. My partner is Carrie Lynn, and we help each other whenever we can. And next slide. This is some of our future goals. The first one there is we do have someone donated a freezer to us. The van that you see there, that's my vision for what I see. I see us as when there's a disaster, we will go and bring whatever we need to do, whatever. Yeah, I just see that as something that's important to have. And the last slide. Thank you for listening. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And we'll go right over to David M. and ask for his response to your presentation.
Thank you, Debbie, for what you shared. And it just struck me as a social worker that these are it's always interesting to me how faith communities are really doing that work in such a mobile and dynamic way than social workers who are kind of have all sorts of restrictions on them. I'm sure even thinking about your time with Nova Scotia Health and knowing the difference between um, and knowing the difference between that type of world and how much more dynamic when faith communities are involved. And so I appreciate what you shared, and I heard a lot. Couple things that stood out for me is especially in the last couple slides is those people that sort of mandate that you have as someone in leadership in this that says we don't say no to anyone is what you said, and I always find that that's the conviction of faith that I hear in that where there's that really struck me, and it comes not against, but it comes in with me with the work that I do and try to do, but in social work and in case management. So I appreciate your witness there, and even the scriptures at the beginning that were so rich of that mission that you feel that is part of it, especially since your movement into ministry in 2017 and those pieces that have been so important. So appreciate everything that you shared. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Before I ask Ronnie to speak, I'll just note one thing to ask the four of you to probably come back to afterwards. Nobody mentioned racism, which I find interesting. So in all of this work, all of this serving the public, was that anywhere in the mix? So I just want to let you sit with that, and then ask Ronnie to speak about his experience from another context, and particularly in the area of politics. So over to you, Ronnie.
Thank you for having me on this very, very interesting panel. May I greet you all warmly. It's 22 degrees Celsius in the cool Blue Mountains outside Kingston, Jamaica. I have a feeling this is a distinct advantage over the asperity of winter which you are experiencing. My journey is as a very privileged Jamaican. Jamaica is largely a Black society. I am a white Jamaican, and from a historical point of view, and still currently, that is an advantage within the fairly rigid class and up until recently racial configurations of our society. I had the tremendous opportunity of growing up in a two-parent middle-class family. The two-parent advantage is a tremendous gift, which many scorn and others have denied them in a number of ways and circumstances. My other advantage was that I was educated by a group of men who gave 30, 40 years of their life. These were Jesuit priests from Boston and similar locations, few Canadians, to the upliftment of Jamaican youth. And I had the best education that any developed country could offer its youth. I also had the tremendous privilege of having my higher education paid for by other people. The the United States paid for my undergraduate education at Cornell University. And quixotically, a trust called the Rhodes Trust financed my education at Oxford University afterwards. So I came from a position of privilege. I engaged in professional life and made personal decisions on the basis of a settled but often superficial Christian faith within the Roman Catholic tradition. I found myself attracted to the dictates of Isaiah 58, of Matthew 25, Debbie, like yourself, and all of the other scriptures which Taiwan, particularly someone as gifted as my past had been, to the service, the radical, unconditional service of others. There's great advantage or great option in Jamaica for that. We have a population of about 3 million people, but it's a highly unequal society, and it has institutional classism and racism, which aggravates that inequality. My legal career was to start legal assistance, legal aid it's called in Jamaica. It didn't exist before. And later, many years in what is, I think you would recognize if I call it public interest law and human rights activism. I became a farmer, and for many, many years was involved in coffee farming, and also in spice and agrarian exercises in the parish of Westmoreland, where Dr. Haas came from. I took stock of myself, and after ordination to the ministry, I recognized a calling to enter political life on the basis of as an imperative response to my faith. I believe that a national budget or any kind of expenditure of taxpayers' money is a sacred exercise. What you're doing in governance is to have charge of or have influence over the resources, particularly contributed by the poor. You make decisions which will affect their flourishing or diminishing, and in many cases, even more poignantly, whether they live or die. So I felt called to bring whatever small contribution of Christian principle that I could, flawed in many times, but earnest, I hope, in most, into the public arena. I joined one of the two major political parties in Jamaica that is best described in the cliched jargon as center-left. I describe myself as a Christian socialist, and heavily influenced, for example, by the Tanzanian leader, soon to be canonized as saint, Julius Nyerere, and many, many others in the Catholic and Protestant tradition. I served a ghetto community. The level of unemployment in the inner city constituency that you call it riding that I represented was over 40%. I served for 20 years in office, and for and more of those were spent as Minister of Education for Jamaica. I'm deeply concerned about the morality of an education system which emphasizes and embeds inequality rather than the opportunity to flourish for everyone, especially those who are most vulnerable. My work subsequent to retirement from politics has been to try and upgrade the standard of the many church schools in Jamaica. Interestingly, there are almost 50% of all public schools are owned or sponsored by Christian churches. And so that's a major element. It's important to describe some of the indices that we're facing. Many of our children are put on a conveyor belt in the education system. Thank God there's a place for them, but quality is very, very uncertain. Large numbers of our children can't read and write when they go to high school, can't compute, and have ill-formed characters. And therefore, there's plenty of ground for transformation. The latest survey of living conditions in Jamaica indicate that over 40% of our young people either don't know who their father is, or if they know who he is, have an uncertain or no meaningful relationship with him. And there is a high degree of poverty. Over 30% of our children go to school every day hungry. And there are, of course, serious consequences for that. The positions that I have taken have not been without controversy. While I was encouraged by my bishop at the time to enter political life, a subsequent bishop took away my faculties and placed me on the margins of ministerial life because I was in politics. And he felt that was anathema to a Christian minister and would be a scandal to the faithful. Fortunately, others have had a different view, and I don't consider it to be some optional extra in my life or those who have similar predisposition. The Christian faith is not a cloistered virtue or exercise habituation. It is very much to be found in the marketplace, and those who are committed to serve must find their place there, whether it is in the food bank or in medical circles or in the academy. So I see quite a seamless passage in the various things that I have tried to do and am trying to do. And I welcome the community and the sense of collegiality, which is obvious in the panel that has been chosen and in the exercise and event that you're having here. And I have to let you know that we're only lending you Marjorie for a little while. So we're going to repatriate her shortly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. I think I want to provoke our panelists and responders. Maybe if one or two of you would like to respond to my question about racism. Yeah. Have you met it? How have you dealt with it? And how has your faith helped you?
Well, I have not had racism with the people that are using the food bank. Let's put it that way. When you need something, when you're poor, when that's when I don't think I think racism is on the back burner. However, when I go shopping, and I have a cart full of things, that's when I encountered racism. I've had people stop and say, um, what are you doing? Like they wouldn't ask normally anyone else what they're doing, but they'll stop right up and they'll just say, what's this about? Like I have to be accountable. I have to let them know what I'm doing. So I a couple of times I said to my daughter, I'm going to get this big sign on the back of me saying this is for the food bank. I don't know how many times I have to say this is for the food bank. I went to a Tim Hortons and I had I have a CRV, so I have the seats down. I had it packed right to the gills with the stuff for the shed. And the lady inside the Tim Hortons said, "What did you do? Rob a store?" Like just the assumptions that why is this black woman having all this stuff with her? What's this all about? Or thinking that I'm hoarding it for, sell it somewhere for a higher price because I shop quite a bit at the dollar store. It's too much. I have to do too much explanation. Now that, if the same people are there, they know I'm there. And you do encounter Christian tellers and that they're understanding and they're very caring in that. But yeah, I had one gentleman say, "Can you leave some of those for me?" And I was, because I don't take everything off the shelf. And so I said, "Oh, did you want that?" He said, "No, I didn't want it. I just, want to know, what are you doing there?" And so it was kind of, I just kind of explained to them. People are very apologetic too. When they know that they're inappropriate, they get super, like they'll flip it really fast and try to make up for it. And so that's what I found too. One lady offered me $20, to go towards. I said, "No, we don't take cash donations. That's okay." She was embarrassed that she didn't know it was for the food bank, and she probably had some, it just, you could sense that it was an assumption there. And then when she found out what it was for, she tried to make up for it. I get some of that too. But like I said, when I'm in the communities and I'm delivering to doors, and it doesn't matter what they look like, if you know what I mean, white or black, they're not prejudiced. They're taking their items and they're very appreciative. So that counteracts all the other stuff that could go on. And I'm hoping that it gets better. And I am getting that sign for the back of my sweater. I have the Preston Area Food Network logo on my jacket and on my t-shirt, but I need something on the back to say, and I will get it. I'm shopping for a food bank so that no one can, say anything, right? So that's all I have to say. And just being in the community of East Preston, we've dealt with racism all our lives. So I try not to focus on that because I look at the good in everyone. And I just feel that, we all, there's systemic racism that has gone on forever. And I'm good. Like, as far as my maturity and my sense of who I am, I'm good. There are others that would not be as good. So my thing is to not bring attention to it. So thanks for asking. I wouldn't normally share it. I share it with my family, but I don't share it with everyone. So yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So I'll go next, Marjorie. So yes,
Mhm.
there has been racism in the workplace, but again, like what you just heard from Reverend Debbie, someone who comes to a doctor when they're unwell, they need help, right? And so, for me personally, they come to me for help, and so they have to put up with me, right? However, I have had instances where we've had to intervene for junior um, trainees, etc., where they've encountered, serious racism. I tell you one experience I had though is I walked into a room. I had on my white coat and walked into a room, and the person in the bed said, "Oh, I'm finished with my tray. You can take it now." And I said, "Okay." And I took the tray out and then came back in and said, "Now I need to examine you. I'm the doctor, So yeah, so it's there, but
Yeah.
as Reverend Debbie said, you deal with it and you
Mhm.
look past it and do the job you need to do. And people learn sooner or later that you're the person that they're coming to for help. And so whatever they feel, they have to keep it down, keep it down. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, now I'd like to open up to the other friends who haven't spoken yet, and ask you to weigh in on the conversation on faith and public service. Evie, you want to say something? You have to unmute.
Okay. My mouth don't lock. Marjorie and I go back, way back to our theological college days when we were giving trouble all over the place. So, of course, I have to be mischievous. And the issues of faith and service in the public place is so important. And I recognize and I honor and thank you for all that you've all said. And some of this I have observed, we know about Ronnie from a long time. But it can become something that is so contentious. And I look at your neighbor down the road, Marjorie, and all of you in Canada, and the way in which faith has been weaponized. And I wonder how we, as people of faith, how we deal with, this different, well, it's not different. This has been happening from, what's his name? Caiaphas said it is expedient for one man to die, the way in which faith can be and what happened to Jesus. But how we deal with this as people of faith and as people of service in the community, in the political arena, in the medical arena. Any thoughts?
No takers? Go for it.
Yes, you stand up for principle. It's very dangerous, or it can be, depending on the context. And also, a very important variable is the critical mass, is your community. What I'm getting the picture of is that there are a group of people who will watch each other's back, who will maybe come from different denominations and perspectives of faith, but who have a common understanding of the basics. And it is that kind of strength that allows you to prevail among the lions and guinea hogs. It is a very worrying time for me, even more worrying, because there are so many people of faith who seem to believe that supporting inequality, supporting crony capitalism, corruption, being an agent of evil and death is somehow godly. And that is going to have huge consequences or is having huge consequences, always has and is now, for particularly the vulnerable of the world, and particularly the south of the world, and particularly the Black, the non-white segment of humanity.
I think Christianity speaks with many voices. And very often, certainly here in Turtle Island, the loudest voices are not always the voices on behalf of the vulnerable. And I think that the assumptions that people have, as Dr. Philpott had quoted earlier, that a number of people who are maybe not people of belonging to the Christian faith have come to see Christianity as not necessarily a positive thing. You know, there's the support of enslavement and colonialism in the past. Here in Canada, we have to deal with the reality of the residential school system and the complicity of the church. We have to deal with, let's say, no support for people, LGBTQ community, some very strict lines around women's roles. You know, very often these are the theological arguments that are in the media, sometimes very well funded. And I think that's a real issue, that how do we do what we are doing, and how do we manage the criticisms of the church and Christians, both historical and contemporary. You know, I think these are real challenges. Is there another way apart from just kind of hiding that you're Christians while you're giving public service?
What surprised me about the clip that you read from Minister Philpott was that in your context, she felt almost embarrassed to be explicit about her moral underpinnings, her religious faith, and I found that strange. Fortunately, we don't have that constraint, or don't sense that constraint in Jamaica, or certainly within the Caribbean, as far as I know it. But is the scorn, the cynicism, that pervasive? And how can the person of faith not be willing to say, this is, here I stand?
Well, I have two responses to that. Actually, I wish some of the Christians would not speak. Because we do have those who are aggressive in their approach to spreading the faith in ways that I don't think are consistent with how Jesus disclosed himself. You know, you don't have a choice. It's just very aggressive, and sometimes it feels psychologically abusive, to be quite frank. But I have been asked, one person said, I don't understand how Black people or Indigenous people can be Christians. This is really, it's raw. And I think we have to face the sex scandals and the residential schools, the mass graves. You know, these are real issues. Some people too are walking wounded, and they have been wounded in the church. So for me personally, I tend to go very gently with people who are angry at church, because we don't know where they are coming from, and the experiences have been painful and have become a part of intergenerational trauma. In addition to that, I think the Western societies are becoming more, I would say, I don't even know if it's more secular. Some people say it's more secular, but I think it's more disconnected from organized religion. So you look at the Canadian statistics, you have more and more people saying I am spiritual, not religious, meaning they're not going to go to church or mosque or temple. But it doesn't mean that they don't have an active sense of spirituality. It's just not anchored in organized religion. And I don't know, it may be a wider part of the wider questioning of traditional institutions, which I think is taking place in many different ways. I don't know what the rest of you think about that, but those are my thoughts.
I do agree with that because I do sense I grew up in rural Nova Scotia and the churches are dying, for lack of a better word, because their congregations are older and the younger people see outreach and community work as church or as spiritual and meaningful. So when Debbie was talking, I thought, oh, I heard this quote about our ability to be resilient is directly related to our ability to be resourced. And you are so resourced and providing resources, and in turn creating resiliency, spirituality, faith, love, community as a whole. So I think that's kind of where this next generation is going with regards to religion and spirituality. It won't be in a building per se. It will be amongst people, is what I'm finding. Even just teaching younger generations of nurses, I can see that as we speak about spirituality in class. What does that mean to you? And those themes come through.
But isn't that good?
Oh, it's very good. Yes. But our hospital system or our formal demographics, like when we collect information from patients or at end of life, we often will say, what is your religion? You know, rather than, but we won't allow their family to come in for it. It's so bizarre to me. In ICU, we were limiting visitors to 1 to 2 people, when with Indigenous populations or Black Nova Scotians or other families in general, like we have a large cohort of Filipinos visiting and coming into our province to stay. Family is everything. Family is everybody. Come in the room, 12, 13, 14 people, but our policies wouldn't allow it. But yet we would ask rigid questions around religion when in fact their spirituality was related to their family being present. So there's a bit of a disconnect there, but it is good news that people remain spiritual. Like it just looks different. And I don't know if everybody's caught up yet.
Okay, we are at 8:17, and I think we need to try to wrap up by 8:30, the latest. So I wonder if those who haven't commented on the panel presentations, Lorato, Annette, Jennifer, if any of you, John, if any of you have any thoughts, Farouche, any thoughts, questions, issues that you'd like to table based on the conversation so far?
This is Annette. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this enlightening discussion. I've always been fascinated by what happens all the way in Nova Scotia. So wonderful to see Marjorie, my former lecturer at United Theology College. And the conversation has to be ongoing. We cannot separate ourselves from ourselves. So we are Christians living in the world. And so whatever we're doing or what comes at us, we have to approach it from that standpoint. We are Christians living in the world. And racism is a part of the world. It's going to be here. It has always been here. Explicitly, some of the madness that we're seeing in the United States and all around the world with right wing and left wing, this and that, it's going to always be here. But how do we show up as Christians living in the world? It's going to always be the conversation that we will have to have. So I'm very happy for this platform. And I've always been intrigued by the Jamaicans living in Nova Scotia, the first set of whom were shipped there against their will. So thank you again for this platform. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Annette. And good to see you too. See.
I've been informed through channels which I cannot speak of that Jennifer Tinkham is unable to respond because she's putting her children to bed right now. So
Thanks for coming on, Jennifer. Right.
Marjorie, Reverend Marjorie, if you ever have an opportunity to visit North Preston, I don't know if you have, a lot of Maroons are living there. Yeah, so you you may want to. And my sister is actually married to a Jamaican. His last name is Lewis, so I don't know. She's in Ontario. She lives in Ontario, so I might just message Lance and tell him that I was talking to Marjorie. Does he know you? He's been in Canada for a long time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any final words? Lerato, okay, thank you. This is bedtime. So I'm really grateful to Jennifer and Lerato and everybody else with children, pets, and all kinds of other life happening all around you. This is wonderful. Well, friends, I think I want to say thank you for coming. I hope we'll have some more conversations. I want to remind you that this is just the beginning of Black History Month for 2025. We have a little exhibition up in the chapel basement for those of you who are in Nova Scotia. Do pass by. It's really people from different religions. We are working on some other panels, so hopefully by the end of February, we will have one Black Baha'i, one Black Muslim, and at least one other Black Christian leader. And that perhaps is one of the ongoing conversations that I hope we will take forward, how we work together with people of different faiths. To let you know that the North American Interfaith Network will be having their Connect conference in Wolfville on the Acadia campus and in the community. It will be August 3 to 7 of this year. And there is now an RFP out for people who would like to do little workshops and so forth. So you can find information on the website of the Wolfville Area Interchurch Council of the North American Interfaith Network. I think their website may be down. Hopefully it will come up soon. Or we can chat apart from this about that. But we're very excited. It's the first time they've come so far east in Canada, and the network, it consists of people from Mexico, Canada, and the United States of all different religions. So we're looking forward to hosting them here. The World Council of Churches has some different categories about interfaith and interreligious dialogue. The one I like best is the dialogue of life, which is that whatever religion or spirituality we have in a space, our job is to work together for life, for human and ecological and animal flourishing. Let's start with life, and then, we can have the luxury of debates and whatnot at some other point. But right now, everybody on this planet, we need to defend life. So thank you all very much. And lots of things happening also at Acadia for African Heritage Month and in the town of Wolfville. So please keep abreast of what's going on. Some things are online, some things are in person. But let us remember that African heritage and African flourishing is not a month. It's always. Thank you. Peace and blessings.
Thank you, Marjorie. And there's a new decade, right?
I thought it was going to 28, no?
No,
The start.
there's now a new decade for people of African descent. It's just been declared. Another 10 years. Anyway, all right.
Great, great,
Thank you
great.
for doing this, Margie. This was really fun. This was good.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you all for coming,
Okay.
and
Thank you.
Thank you,
we will
everyone.
continue
Have a
with
blessed
Thank you,
our
Reverend Debbie. Thank
conversation
you.
and
Be
action.
blessed.
Alrighty.
God bless you
Thank
all.
you
God,
again.
God
Good
bless.
night.
you.
Have a
Blessings.
good night.
You too.
You too. Bye-bye.